Welcome, everybody, back to the REDX Podcast. My name is Curtis Fenn, REDX president. Today, I'm pretty excited about our guest and bringing him on because not just the experience in real estate, but the experience in coaching thousands, tens of thousands of agents over many years. And so we're going to talk today about what is going on in the market and some skills that you have got to understand based on what is happening in the market today. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Patrick Ferry.
Thanks, Curtis. And by the way, I do love looking at those mountains in the background.
And they're real. It's not a virtual, So we have snow a little bit longer. Patrick, in case somebody is, I don't know, brand new to the industry and doesn't know who you are, is not on your YouTube channel yet, why not give us a brief introduction, of who you are, your experience, and why we're excited to have you on the show.
Yeah, great. The real quick story is, I'm Patrick Ferry. I'm the youngest son of Mike Ferry, which, I've got my brother Tom Ferry and Matthew Ferry, who are, all three of those guys are, I would say, my mentors and the people that I've modeled everything after. I jumped into my dad's business, I think in the, early 2000s. So I've been in the real estate industry now for, 20 something years. And along that journey, I've kind of worked on all of the prospecting, the skills, the training, how to scale a listing business. Then I'm now a coach today with my brother Tom's company. And in that environment, I've worked on all of the digital marketing, the social media, the online, how to scale and grow a team. So I've been working on all of that stuff for now more than a decade. Work with about anywhere between 65 to 70 real estate clients across the country. I did have a run with real estate here in San Diego, and I worked with my wife and father-in-law for about 5 years. In our peak year, I kind of helped us get up to about 54 sales, about 1.3 in GCI, and that was kind of 2017, 18, right? And then kind of 2020, I went back full time to coaching, and then here we are today. Right.
Yeah.
So I have, I have some real world tangible experience in the field, as well as a lot of, coaching, training, et cetera, and exposure. Yeah. I've been across the country, just like you, Curtis, and all of us, been across the country in all the different market cycles numerous times over. Right. So, pretty good perspective on kind of what people need to do during different market cycles as well. So And that's, I think, what's important today is where are we at today? And what is working right now? Because, things have been shifting.
Yeah. And I think people are freaking out, for lack of better terms. I mean, if you're following forums and groups and things online, the question, you can kind of get a sense of the uncertainty, the more the questions go and the more the kind of frantic of what do I do here and what do I do and really you can always tell the state of the market when people start asking about side hustles and part-time jobs, to keep people going. But so I think there is some uncertainty here. I think there was a lot of optimism towards the end of the year. And then there's a whole bunch of external circumstance, right? The Feds decided not to keep lowering rates like we thought they were going to do in January, and, political landscape and all of these things. From our standpoint, we're looking and we say, hey, in Q1, there's been a 10% increase in the number of properties that have expired. Mm-hmm. And that's with not a lot of change in transactions. Inventory's up, more inventory's up, transactions don't change. It means the number of expireds, canceled, starts to go up. And so, we always look at that as an opportunity.
Well, that's why I was like, we got to talk about this because just this spring market and the summer and Q2 and Q3, I think is going to be an extraordinary opportunity for expired cancels based upon the general forecasting. And so this is an amazing time.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how to get a good price reduction, and you don't have a good price reduction script and system, you're too scared to do it. You're too nervous to do it. And, someone else will take the listing and get it sold. So, today let's talk about those two things because, that's exactly right. A 10% increase already, right?
Yeah. 10% increase already. And the Q1 represents the longest cycle for expires. They take the longest amount of time before they decide to relist, usually because people are waiting for that spring market. Mm-hmm. And with some uncertainty in the headlines and things going on, your guess is as good as mine. My based off some historical data, I would guess that people are taking a little bit longer before they decide to relist with the right agent. And that's for two reasons. They're waiting to see the landscape, but more than anything, they're waiting for the right agent to come in and give them the confidence that now is still the right time. And that goes back to scripts and dialogues and the right digital marketing and getting in front of them. But why don't we start not on that opportunity? That's what I talk about in every podcast. Why don't we talk about, look, if you're especially if you're one of our customers and you are specializing in listing a home a second time around, second to list, we want it to sell. We do not want you to let that thing expire, cancel again, because you came in on the promise that I'm going to do what nobody else could do. And so let's talk about that first. And that whole skill set of, if you can't get a price reduction, so where do we
let's start in there, because I think confidence is really king in this environment. I just was working with one of my coaching clients who has 30 listings right now in South Florida. And, we've been having a lot of dialogue around pricing strategy, listing presentation, price reductions. And, you start to get into this place where you start to have fear about taking the next listing, because you're like, I don't want to put myself in that stressful situation. So today we have to resolve that confidence piece with really good strategy and a really good script. So here's where I learned this though. So I'm going to give you guys my price reduction script, but where I learned this relates to expired listings. So back in the day, I was working with a lot of expired and cancels back in the downturn. So 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11. This is the worst real estate market on the history of the world, right? This is the worst market. So the fundamentals still applied then, which is number one, if they were highly motivated, that's who you're looking for. So when you're prospecting, not everybody was motivated. Lots of people had the option to wait, and you could handle that objection, or you could just keep going back to find the person that was ready to motivated to do the thing. And today in this environment, this is king. It just, in previous market cycles where if they're slightly motivated, we could still put their home on the market 5-10% over the market value, and it still sell.
Right.
So let's just
things are on the way up. Yeah.
Let's just acknowledge that was the case, right? So, if you're like, if everything's selling with 10 offers and your property sits on the market for 30 days, you'd still get an offer and you still sold it for 5% over value. Congratulations. That is no longer the case in this new cycle. Okay. So, but what I learned from back then was motivation is king. We all know that. And if you didn't know that, welcome to the party. But number two was there was some scripting that I figured out when we were calling expireds. And that helped me to understand what the price reduction script was. So one of the scripts that we used to say was just, hey, well, obviously there's the classic question. What do you think stopped the home from selling? Most of the time, the conversation generally is neutral. They don't really know. So the next logical question was, what did your agent say as to why the home didn't sell? And if we frame there, now the agents, we know what the agent's going to say today. They're going to say something about the market, or they're going to say something aggressive about pricing. Well, my agent just told me to reduce the price. Or, the economy's a little funky, the Trump tariff thing, the interest rates are really high, buyer demand, excuse, right? Which is natural. So now we have a real dialogue ready to roll, okay? Then what I found is I realized as a real estate coach that there was one other question. And I would say, when was the last time that your agent did a market analysis? And what you would hear all the time was, oh, well, 6 months ago, or before we
or never, right?
But most of the time it was this window of time.
Yeah.
And then at that same time, during all of our coaching to be successful during the downturn, we were working diligently on coaching our clients on the weekly seller report. How do you give a weekly seller report? Or back then when we had 50 listings, it was a bi-weekly or bi-monthly weekly seller report. So I started to think as a strategist, I was like, okay, so they haven't had an updated market valuation in months. And I know they're not getting a weekly seller report. So I just integrated that right into the script. And I said, so in your weekly seller report, what did your agent say as to what the buyers were buying and why they didn't choose your home? And of course, we already knew where that went. And now here's what was cool, Curtis, was instead of blaming the agent, instead of blaming the seller for choosing the wrong price and being a jerk, instead of trying to lean on my fancy marketing plan, I actually identified the real problem. The real problem was they weren't paying very close attention to the market, and they weren't following where the property needed to be from the feedback. And as soon as I just put that together, I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. So now I don't have to go, hey, well, let me show you my unique marketing plan, because that's stupid. I didn't have to blame the other agent, and I didn't have to make them wrong. I found an area where they can go, oh, then the natural close script that booked thousands and thousands of listing appointments from that, which was what I would be willing to do, Curtis, is take 2 hours and I'll do some research and I'll take a look at what the buyers did buy and why they chose those other homes and not yours. Now, is that new information, or did I just package it up in new information? Right? I just packaged it up in a new way, and they went, "I don't know that. That's interesting. That's something I was unaware of." So then they're like, "Of course, I want to learn that." And I'd say, "And I'll create a custom marketing plan specifically for your home that is designed to cause your home to sell within 30 days or less," which is exactly what they want. Right? And then I go, I'd be willing to invest all that time if you'd be willing to spend 15 minutes to review that new information with me. And of course, they're like, all right, I want to see it. Do you guys follow me?
Yeah.
So it started from observing the real problem, asking some great questions, figuring out that this was a great avenue, and then packaging up my offer, my close to them, and voila, pretty much everybody would say yes, right? Now, I do a little takeaway, so this is fun, everybody. You take it away a little bit and you go, and if I don't think that I can sell your home for the highest possible price in today's market, I'll just cancel the appointment. Is that fair? Right? Because remember, it's an expired, everybody. So if you take it away, if you say, I'm not confident that I could show you exactly what it would take to sell your home in 30 days or less for the highest possible price in today's market from my research and my prep, then don't worry, I'll just cancel the appointment on you.
Yeah.
Right? And then they go, okay. Right? Because that's an irresistible offer, right? Okay. So anyways, that led me, right, to where we land today, which is back in June of, kind of May, June of 2022. What happened? We had a doubling of interest rates. Yeah. What happened? Buyer demand fell off like a cliff, and there was a whole remaining unsold expired cancel. So, and I'm sure Curtis, you and the whole team was screaming from the rooftops, let's go, let's go, let's go. Right. And I was too with all my coaching. Let's go, let's go, let's go. I also knew that I needed to give them the price reduction scripting.
Right.
I was like, oh, shoot. So then I went back and revisited that. And that's where we land today, is I just want to share with everybody kind of like, okay, what do we need to do in that weekly seller report? And then what's the scripting to get the price reduction naturally?
I love it. I love it. And I can already tell, even by the setup, that it's like future pacing in the script. How you even set the appointment is you've already set them up because to say, we just listen to the market.
That's right.
So we're going to pay attention to the market. So yeah, let's go at it. I'm going to.
No, that's exactly right. And this is so way back in the day, I kind of created a script that I thought was that became very successful in the industry, right? Which is what I refer to as pricing strategies, the term pricing strategies, and the 3 pricing strategies. So I figured this out actually kind of in 2010. And then, with my brother, Tom, we kind of brought this concept and it became very successful in the early teens, right? The term pricing strategy and the 3 pricing strategies. And what I've learned over the years is it's actually okay. We know that the seller always wants to take the price it high, leave room for negotiation. They want to go to that strategy naturally. But if we didn't have a way to train them on what the right price was over time, we as an industry would be too scared. It would be too stressful to let the seller choose that strategy, right? Because of course, as every coach and every trainer said, that the seller has to choose the price.
Right.
But to me, it's not that they're choosing the price. They misinterpret that. They're choosing the pricing strategy. The moment you change it in their brain, and what I would tell people is that actually pricing is a function of marketing. Pricing works with marketing. Pricing actually is one of the most important tools to the success of the marketing. And when I put it into that context, most of my agents go, oh, thank you for helping me understand this. The sellers, again, still don't understand this stuff, and that's okay, right? The sellers are still thinking, well, the number that I tell you to list the property at is the number that I want, and I want my home sold at that number. Most of them think that way, and that's okay, right? So now let's get to this next phase, which was, what is this scripting? Okay. So most of us already know that we should be responsible for reporting back to the sellers. I basically kind of broke it into 4 component parts, right? The first component part is just the feedback, feedback from marketing, views, Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, MLS, view counts. If you did a Facebook ad, if you did a, YouTube video, if you did some social media, view count. Of course, we should have some version of reporting on that stuff, because that's valuable for them to see that a lot of people have viewed the property online. Now, there's a little bit of scripting here that I think is valuable. Our job with marketing and presenting the property and marketing the property is to get the buyers to come to the house. The house still has to do the work. The neighborhood, the location, and the property has to seal the deal.
Right.
Okay. So that's also helpful for my clients. Like, no, the marketing, look how much exposure we're getting for your property. But if they're not choosing to come to the property, that's a problem. Right. And we'll talk about the options in a second that relates to that. Course number 2 is, and this is useful. Is we of course have to review the comps, but we got to frame this the right way. And I've got a whole document on this with everybody, so we'll just touch it, which is we got to actually give good language to a new active listing is new competition. Hey, Curtis, unfortunately, we have some new competition to look at. This is competition that your buyer is going to be looking at. We got to frame it the right way. New active is new competition. Now, what's under contract? Under contract is your buyer chose to buy this home, not yours. Let's take a look at that. What's a sold? A sold is the comp, but a sold is here's a new sold that your buyer's appraiser is going to have in the consideration set for the loan. So all I did was elevate the educational value of a simple market analysis, kind of guiding that these terms guide the seller to the right conclusion, to see it in the right way. The terms that we use in the real estate industry, the jargon that we use as an industry is not appropriate for the consumer. And we have to be more sensitive and be more clear about that stuff. Let me tell you about the new escrows. What's an escrow? All right. Let me tell you about the new inventory. there's some eggs on the shelf. What are you talking about?
Right.
Right. Let me tell you about the new comps. What is that? What's a comp? Right. Now we do this every day. So anyways, let's get to it. So that's, phase one, just the results. Phase two, the market, right? Phase three, of course, is any feedback, right? We should, and we have to explain, by the way, please explain in advance, future pace yourself a favor and let your sellers know that you're going to do everything in your power to get feedback, not only from the buyers, but from the agents and some of your other peer groups in the marketplace, other top agents that you respect, that you have friends with, that you're going to be getting feedback, but also just let them know that it's hard to get it out of them, right? So that when we do report it, it's like, I chased down 5 agents and 2 of them gave me some feedback. One of them was mostly useless, but here's the one that I did get. And I thought that this was actually interesting. So please set yourself up for success by future pacing how difficult this is. And then please, my friends, I discovered this for myself once, I was one of those agents where, we had a lot of listings and I was trying to get feedback. When I was the agent trying to get feedback, I realized that I was also the jerk buyer's agent that wasn't giving feedback to the listing agents. So for all my friends out there, please respond to your listing agents and give them good quality feedback. Let's do that as an industry, because it's kind of embarrassing that we don't do that. And we're a little dismissive of the value of that. So just a little industry announcement there. Let's all step up our game, please. Let's help each other out. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Of course, that's number 3. And then number 4 is the thing that, I spent a lot of time talking about, which is, hey, everybody, we're supposed to be doing our market update every month. And you're supposed to be doing a market update video, aren't you? Where you're following the trends and the stats of the market and you're actually educating on what's going on in a public facing video and you're broadcasting that to your community, because we are paying attention to how the external market is affecting our local market, how the big narratives in the news is affecting the trends in our local market. That video that you do every month, why don't you go ahead and put that in there into your packaging as well, so that your customers and your sellers respect you and respect your opinion. Right. Now, what we used to talk way back in the day, Curtis, you remember this back in the 2008, 9, 10, during the downturn is, we used to say like, cut out the article out of the newspaper.
Yep.
Like, reference the local news headline, like take advantage of this external education so that we can present that here's what's going on at the national level in the headline news, and because they're reading it and they're talking about it. And if you're not having an intelligent discussion with them about the stuff that they're experiencing, then you lose credibility.
Right.
And we can't.
There's no excuse anymore. I mean, one, there's so many tools that curate and compile this already. And 2, if you're not using AI to hyper localize what's going on and create a script even for what you could put together, you're way behind. I mean, it's so easy to do what again, we were in conferences 15 years ago that you had to work pretty hard to be the expert advisor. And that's so easy. And all the information is at your fingertips. You just have to make the video. Yeah.
My favorite simple hack right now is Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro experimental. It's free to everybody right now with a Gmail account. 2.5 Pro experimental. Just ask it right now, what is happening with your local market? And it'll give you probably one of the more accurate spit out summaries that you'll experience. Now, just so everybody understands this, 6 months ago, it was pretty good, pretty accurate. The stats were okay. A year ago, I wouldn't have counted on it. Today, I still probably wouldn't count on ChatGPT unless I did deep research, right? But with Gemini now up to date, it's pretty much spot on, perfect with a nice summary. You could take that summary and then throw it in your ChatGPT and ask it to create a script for you. Easy peasy, wheezy, right? No excuse. All right, so we've set the basic foundation. Everybody kind of knows that. I just wanted to give a few little interesting tidbits to that, but let's get to the meat of the matter, which is, what is the price reduction script? And everybody, I want you, if you're watching this video, I want you to repeat after me: review your options. Review your options. This should be one of the most common scripts we say in real estate. Review your options. Now, let's go over the options and let's come back into some scripting. Option number 1, right? And I learned this the hard way, right? Is, hey, Mr. Seller, that we should make some changes to the marketing. Changes to the marketing. What that does here, this is super interesting, is it takes the responsibility back on me as the agent, right? And how many times, guys, if you're a listing agent, the seller's like, I didn't like that photo. My sister's brother-in-law's best friend said that the way that you wrote the listing description was kind of silly and you missed this detail. I didn't like the order of the photos. You didn't do a drone. You didn't do. My friends, we have to take responsibility and we have to make those corrections for the seller. That's number 1. Option number 1. Option number 2, change something about the property. Now, what are we talking about? I've been on hundreds of listing appointments and it's like, those windows right there, Curtis, behind you, not really the style that the buyers are super interested in. And you know it and I know it. Those drapes, you know it and I know. The pink carpet in the closet, not the greatest. But the seller decided to move forward without making those corrections.
Right.
So as top listing agents, we've all done number 2. We've gone back and corrected some of those things. We brought the home back to market and it sells. This is absolutely option number 2. Option number 3, this is the take away the break. Stay the course, do nothing. Curtis, we also option number 3, just stay the course, do nothing, and we'll just kind of wait and see. Let's take a look at this 1 more week, 2 more weeks. It's totally fine.
Can you clarify for me? Is this the script? Are there external factors where you're guiding them to choose one of these options based on the marketing, or is this a script you're having every X amount of time?
Every time. These are the options. Okay. Every time. You can have it written. So if you did an email report, it's just written.
Oh, so
when
this
you're
is face
to face, this is just these are the options. Period. End of story. So it's just, and then the quicker, and you can even set it up in advance. I'm going to be delivering you the 4-part series on the feedback, and we're always going to review the options, and that's part of my listing process. That's why I'm so successful. That's why I have so many 5-star reviews from my sellers, even in challenging properties, even in challenging market cycles, because I always give appropriate feedback and I always review the options. Period. End of story. Okay. Gotcha. So now let's go to the next 3 options, because there's 6 options.
Okay.
The next one is a micro price adjustment. Micro. Okay. Option number 4, 5% price adjustment. Option number, 5, and then 6, 10% price reduction. If we all take a step back for a hot second, these are the options, period. And if you guys can think of something different, let me know. There is one other thing we'll talk about in a minute, which is called the reverse offer, which I like a lot, but that's also a tool in the toolbox, which we'll talk about. Yeah. But let's dive into these 3 for a hot second. The micro price reduction. Now, I know my father would be, absolutely appalled with me right now for even saying these terms, right? But I actually learned some very powerful things about the micro price reduction, and I started to use them very successfully when I presented the option, right? So a couple things on this. I actually picked this up from an amazing agent who was who sold artwork, like very expensive artwork, before he got into real estate. And he said he had this unique property. This was probably a standout property in a community, which none of us want ever. We never want the nicest house on the block for sale, because it's always the value is up here, but the average value is down here. And that's always the kiss of death. And so he had that listing, and I was coaching him because he was an awesome agent. It was so fun. And he said, here's what I decided to do. My sellers agreed that we were going to do a $10,000 price. It's like a $2.5 million listing.
Yeah.
We're going to do a $10,000 price reduction every week until it sells. And I was like, dang, that's interesting. Out of the box.
Yeah. Within
3 weeks under contract.
Right. Well, there's a whole lot of algorithm involved in that strategy. I mean, even just the way that people have set up, as soon as the price reduces, it pings everybody that's saved that property or that's looked at that property. So it's from a marketing perspective, and you think like a marketer, more, is exposure, is the highest form of attention is the highest form of currency. And if we can get their attention more and more and more. So I love the micro price.
Yeah, that's exactly. And then Curtis, you explain that to the seller,
right?
You say, look, here's what happens and here's why this works. Right. And now what I also will do is I'll negotiate a micro price reduction with, let's say that, we decided to fix this thing in the house. Maybe we decided to change up the photo order, or maybe I didn't order the drone photos. So now I order the drone photos for $100 and I add the drone photos in. And I said, hey, why don't we add in a micro price reduction with these fixes? So I kind of combine the two things. Right. Yeah. With the micro price reduction. And then, the MLS, all the, the Zillow, Redfin, Trulia, all the agents, they all get an alert of the new property. So if you didn't change the first photo and update the listing description and do something a little bit, that's silly. This is a great, simple opportunity where we use our tools. They do a little give and we get a refresh. Hey, and I'll throw an open house on the weekend as well. Why don't we do that on a Tuesday, and I'll do an open house on a Saturday or a Sunday. Yeah. So you do a little give or take exchange in there with the sellers, and they love it. Right. Okay. So the micro price reduction is a wonderful strategy. Apply it. Okay. And then of course, 5% and 10%. Now, when you're doing your feedback well, what will happen, it won't take more than 1, 2, or 3 weeks before the seller just says to you, should we just do the 10%? Should we just do the 5%? And it's the easiest ever. So what I learned is when I confidently was giving them high quality feedback, giving them all of their options, right? Taking responsibility where I needed to take responsibility, right? Letting them make any fixes, letting them stay the course, or doing the price reduction. It took all the stress and pressure off me. And now the sellers just choose the next step, right? And that's how this thing works. I've been doing this for the last couple of months with all my coaching clients who are in some of those marketplaces where the buyer demand dropped, inventory swelled, and they are now getting, I've always wanted to have 10 listings, and now they have 10 listings sitting, and now they're freaking out. We immediately implemented this, takes all the pressure off. Right now, do
you ever future pace or set them up, or I guess educate them on the way to listen to the market through your reports that helps them choose the better price reduction strategy? Meaning, if you say, look, I'm going to send these reports. If we have thousands of people looking at the home and no one choosing to come and look at it, you need to listen to the market that way. So talk to that a little bit, because
Yeah, there's the I think, everybody's seen that pyramid, where if you price it up here, you have the smallest number of buyer pools. You price it here at the big part of the pyramid, you have the biggest buyer pool. You price it down here, you have the largest pool, right? So everybody has to kind of have this ability to explain, when you choose pricing strategy number one, which is price it as high as you possibly can, hoping that someone sees your value, leaving room for negotiation, that at that stage, everybody has to be really comfortable with letting them know how buyers perceive that, right? Yeah. How the buyer behavior. There's another term that I don't think us listing agents in the agent community don't use enough: buyer behavior.
Yeah.
I study buyer behavior every single day. I study how they view the market, how they view pricing, how they view condition, how they view location. And as a listing agent, I am an expert in buyer behavior. I'm a really good listing agent. I'm really good at marketing. What? Well, I do staging. Okay. What else do you do? Well, I do Facebook. I do video. Okay. But if you really are an expert at selling houses, you also are an expert at observing the buyer behavior and how they are attracted or not attracted to your product.
I love that.
Right? And it's hard to do, but we got to get better at that. And so I'd love to see some of that language in your housing market report, right? And start to report on that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? It's easy to report on lagging indicators, sold, days on market. Tell me what's going on the leading side. Yep. Tell me, everybody, how is the stock market influencing your buyer behavior in your market right now? And who did you go survey to find out that information? Your lenders. Oh, did you talk to your lenders and say, what percentage of the loans in our marketplace are influenced by a stock market fluctuation? Oh, did you do that? Because that's a leading indicator, right? So for my high-end marketplaces, like if you're not reporting on that, you're shooting yourself in the foot, and then you're making excuses, making you look like you don't know what's going on. And that is a problem, right? Anyway, it's fun.
Well, it's fun. I look, that's a lot of information.
I've got a good report, so if I can, I'll provide my report on all of this stuff, right? Just a link, everybody can download it and get after it. So I will make that available. And I got a couple videos and some resources for people to really dig in there.
Okay, so if you want that and you're in the comments, go ahead and comment that you want that. We'll go find that link and post that in the comments of the podcast here. Look, pricing reduction is important. I just wanted to offer one observation. When we do data studies, one of the studies we look at is what is the difference between the first time around and the second time around for like an expired or canceled. And in 2024, we'll get this updated for Q1 25 soon, but in all of 2024, in every instance, when a home was listed with a new agent, the days on market was almost in half. And that was whether they increased the price of the home, decreased the price of the home, or kept the price of the home the same.
Very interesting.
And when you dig into why that is, it's because a new agent does new marketing. Mm-hmm. They take new pictures. They write a new description. Right. So even if they keep the price the same, what's funny is, the days on market is still cut in half. So it's just when we go back to the options of saying, hey, should we change something? And again, we'll post this chart. You could put this right into your report to say, hey, in every instance, if we change up the marketing, homes get sold faster, right? Mm-hmm. So the micro adjustment, the price reduction, the big reduction, but also changing the main photo. It could be as simple as that. Not even take a new photo, just make sure that if there's any trigger that's going to tell people to look at it again, make sure something's different. because in our research, in every case, that helps get a home sold faster.
Yep, for sure.
So love it. Patrick, we're definitely going to have you back, because I think I could have spent the entire time going deep just on the initial script of getting the appointment.
Yep.
And the future pacing. So let's definitely have you back. Any last words of advice on the market, what agents should be doing, and then where can they go to get more information from you? They should be following your YouTube channel, but tell them where to go.
Two things for me is I've been really upping my game with YouTube. So Coach Patrick Ferry, and then also my email newsletter. And I don't send it out that often. I need to be more consistent, but I write it. I always put my resources. I usually just pick one subject and I go as deep as I can and just push that off to everybody on my email newsletter. So, so when people want that, I'll get a little link so that everybody can get my seller report, full report. It's about 4 pages of just text, no pictures, right? Not a big spacing, not font. This is like, here's everything that we talked about today in detail. So we'll get that off to everybody. Okay. But the final words for me is, I've been stressing really aggressively for many years now that understanding these small micro changes and really studying the housing market and what influences the housing market has tremendous value to you as a real estate agent, you as a homeowner, you as an investor. And when you are extending that confidence back to your community, you just look like a rock star. So, I'm always trying to invite my clients and my friends, be a better student of the housing market and economy. And I love the KCMs and the Inmans and some of these things, they kind of gloss a little bit. So for some of my nerdier friends, go deeper, have some fun with this. It's made me a lot of money learning the market and the economy. I've made a lot of money personally because of that. And I was able to offer really good advice and offer the options to my friends. And just now I get way more calls. Hey, Patrick, what do you think? Hey, what do you think's going on? Right? All my smartest friends. Hey, Patrick, what do you think's going to happen? I want all of my friends and clients to be that person in the marketplace, right? Yeah. Stop chasing leads around like a salesperson and become a respected real estate advisor in your marketplace that's sought after. That's the game for me.
Love it. Love it. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Remember to ask your questions. Come back to the chat. Make sure you post something so it notifies you when we add those links to the chat. And look for Patrick Ferry on YouTube, and also the link to get the newsletter and the seller report. Patrick, thanks again for joining us. We're here every Thursday at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. So we'll see you back next week. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Curtis.